Okay, so there's a couple of questions that I wanted to address when talking about this Caroline Leavitt press conference that was held today. I think there's a few subjects they discussed that stand out. So let's go.
Of victims at the hands of illegal immigrant crime, and frankly, the actions and the words of the Democrat Party prove they could not care less about the American public. And maybe if they did, they'd see a bit higher approval ratings right now. Thanks for being here with us today. Peter.
Thank you, Caroline. To follow up on something that you just said, why do Ivy League schools get so much federal funding?
It's a very good question. And
Yeah, I'm not touching that one. I think Harvard got about $53.2 billion in endowments in 2024, and they got about $50.9 billion from 2023. So,
to follow up on immigration, deporting American citizens to Central American prisons, is it legal, or do you need to change the law to do it?
Well, it's another question that the president has raised. It's a legal question that the president is looking into. And he talked about this yesterday when with his meeting with President Bukele in the Oval Office. He would only consider this, if legal, for Americans who are the most violent, egregious, repeat offenders of crime who nobody in this room wants living in their communities.
And then there's
so much in that statement, because the question that needs to be followed up with that answer is, one, you're talking about American citizens. Violent criminals, yes, that's how they're being classified, but American citizens nonetheless. So the obvious question that needs to be asked is, the deal that you made with El Salvador, in order for you to then house these violent criminals, is this going to skirt around due process, yes or no? The answer that she would need to give is that they need to change the law, and it's based on something that this guy is then about to ask. Regardless of how many people that you already have in the country, legally or illegally, if you go on the mandate of deporting people the way that you currently are, you're not going to do this via the courts. You'll be out of office by then. Maybe.
What?
I say maybe because apparently
that committee was totally rigged, and I didn't mind going to prison.
I brought a copy tonight. Here it is, the Constitution. Can I read a passage to you? Amendment 22. No person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. And yet you keep talking about Trump's third. Maybe you should have this. Here,
I'll get you to sign it backstage and underline. Look, President Trump didn't bring up running for a third term. Myself and others brought up running for a third term. President Trump is going to run for a third term, and President Trump is going to be elected again on the afternoon of January 20th of 2029. He's going to be president of the United States.
Okay, but the thing I just read in there, it seemed like there was no wriggle room there. It seemed like it was just, 8 or 10 words it said only 2 times.
We have a team of people that are working. A team.
How can a team do something about that? What? I don't care if the team is 12 trillion people. The words are still the words.
Bill, every day in federal courts, right now in federal courts, there's 120 lawsuits on what President Trump's doing for his Article 2 rights on the unified executive theory. But he's chief executive, he's commander-in-chief, and he's chief magistrate and chief law enforcement officer. There's 100, and they're running to court every day to sue President Trump, all because the interpretation of this. The interpretation of this is open for interpretation.
the interpretation of that is what they're trying to undo. The Supreme Court already issued an order to Donald Trump, and guess what happened? Exactly what you thought would happen when you have no means of enforcing the order that you gave to a man that you just gave immunity to. You gave him immunity. You'd probably have a much easier time restraining an angry wolf. With that immunity verdict, everything that the president does from that point on is right. So now you trying to rein him back in is faulty. It's open season. And now, as you can clearly hear, it's even open season on citizens. Just for a second, take out the notion of violence in there, because the precedent that this sets, once you're the determiner of what's considered rule of law, the reason why that issue with Garcia was so important is because the courts gave an order and Donald Trump blatantly said no.
Damn!
At that point, Constitution be damned, rule of law be damned, and you're not very far from then stating that the experiment, this country experiment, it's almost null and void. It only works if everyone equally buys into the rules that are set. Imagine Monopoly, where you roll the dice once and go around the board as many times as you want to until you decide that you want to stop.
CHNV thing, President Biden let more than 530,000 people from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela into the U.S. with this CHNV program. He did it with the stroke of a pen. And now a judge will not let President Trump undo it with the stroke of a pen. So are you guys going to give all 530,000 plus people individual deportation hearings, or are you just going to try to deport them?
I spoke to White House counsel's office about this morning because obviously another rogue district court judge is trying to block the administration's mass deportation efforts with this latest injunction. We will fight this in the court of law, and we will ensure that every individual who illegally entered our country and was really taken advantage of by the previous administration because they abused the parole system in this country to fast track legal status, as they said, for these illegal immigrants. And they completely abused our legal system. Many of these paroled individuals were then given temporary protective status, which the intention of that TPS was only supposed to be used in times of war or storm or destruction in the home countries of these migrants. It was completely abused. These migrants came here for economic reasons, and they illegally entered our country, and the president is not going to tolerate that. And so we will continue to focus on deporting as many individuals as we can. Jennifer.
One on tariffs and one on Russia. Can you give us any sort of an update on which deals are in hand or are close? Which countries are reaching a deal on tariffs? And then on Russia, can you give us an update on what the agreement was with Russia? The president yesterday said that he thinks we'll be seeing some very good deals very soon. Can you talk a little bit about what Russia agreed?
Okay, so the question was about Russia, and it's important to note that Russia was responsible for killing about 34 people with the strike. This is how that question was handled when it came down to Donald Trump.
And also, yes.
Do you have a reaction to Russia's Palm Sunday attack on Ukraine?
I think it was terrible, and I was told they made a mistake. But I think it's a horrible thing. I think the whole war is a horrible thing. I think the war is, for that war to have started is...
We're really pivoting to Biden again. It was a mistake. Unfortunately, I don't think it was a mistake in all actuality. I think they're doing it very much on purpose because they already know that the deal that's going to be struck up is one where they can just keep whatever territory they've already grabbed. And if that's the case, why not just grab as much territory as you possibly can before any deal is necessarily struck? Here's a clip from Russian media with them actually stating that Ukraine is basically going to be forgotten about, partitioned even.
Вот через 4 секунды люди в Америке забудут слово «Украина». Ну, поверь мне. Я знаю Америку. Ну, да. Они просто забудут про это вообще. Какая судьба ждет Украину? Украину не ждет никакая судьба. Судьба ждет территорий, которые раньше были Украиной, как мне кажется. Территории, которые раньше были Украиной, будут поделены, как была когда-то поделена Польша. Мы заберем все то, где нам рады. Посерединке будет буферная зона, чтобы те, кто нам не рады, не могли устраивать пакости тем, кто нам рады. А то, что за буферной зоной, да найдется кому поделить между собой. Так или иначе, будь то де юре присоединение или какой-то такой изуверский с рукой вывернутой протекторат, как это любят делать на Западе. Ну, в какой-то форме это будет так.
Но все-таки хотелось бы вернуться.
That's the play. So anyways, I just want to address those 2 points. Whatever your thoughts are, leave them in the comment section. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like, and I will see you again on the next one. Be easy, y'all.